All right, so I do have a very exciting workshop for you today. It's one of my favorite topics, which I feel like I'm dedicating like my whole practice and my whole life to. So this workshop is a workshop that can literally be a workshop of like 3 months, but I'll do my best to condense it in 1 hour or 1 hour and a half. So in this workshop, we're trying to find out what are the things that we love, what are the things that excite us and we want to do more of. And this is in the realm of art, in the realm of ceramics, and really get to know our materials, really understand what are the ways that we can inspire ourselves, what are the ways that we can register things, like we can go in nature and we can find the things that are interesting. It could be a trunk of a tree, it could be the texture on that trunk, it could be even sometimes dirt. Sometimes I feel inspired by swamps, by fungus, by things that you don't usually take another look at, but I feel sometimes it's kind of our duty, but also it's our privilege really to just find the thing that we are interested in and record in it and invest in time and energy into trying to see what that thing is or what we can do with it. A good mindset to have is to go into it without pre-made decisions, to just do it as we do it for the first time. And I think this goes well with any art project that you're doing, is to just kind of go into it without pre-made decisions, without deciding, I can already know that I like this and like that, because we do love so many different things. We can be inspired by so many different things, and we can every day, like we can discover new things that we didn't know that we would like, but we would not know them if we didn't try them out. One of the things that I'm passionate about is having a lot of sessions of play, because play is the way that you can experiment more. And knowing that we're also working with clay, and when we say clay is a very generic term because there are so many different types of clay, and clay is like people. Sometimes it's like people with different personalities. Every clay, the texture is different, the way that they fire is different, the way that you touch it, the way that you manipulate it is different. There are the all-purpose clay that we can always use, and it's great. It's very malleable, it works with you, and this is the beauty of the clay, is that it works with you, and it wants to work with you. One of the things that we know about working with the clay, that it takes time for the clay to be fired. The firing process might take time. Other than that, you don't really know how the end result would be until you actually fire. And sometimes after the firing, it kind of looks a little bit different. That's why it's always good to have test tiles to test things out. Testing things out is something that it's a continuing process, whether it's with art, whether it's with clay, because sometimes I do use the same tools, but I do discover something new every time. For example, through working with sketching, I realized that I love charcoal. Every time I do work with charcoal, I can discover something new, because there's so many things that you can do even with one tool. What we're going to do in this workshop is that I'm going to try to test out with you as many paints, as many tools, as many things that are available to us today that we can use. And there are also a lot of things that can be transferred from paper to the clay, and this is the majority or the meat and bone of this workshop. We're going to see how we can move the things that we loved on the paper and see how we can apply that on the clay. The paper would allow us a little bit more freedom, and also would allow us something important, which is instant results. The moment that we paint is the moment that we see how things looks, and we can immediately see, like, okay, I do love this stroke, and I love how thick this paint is, and I do love the spatter, and I do love the messiness. Or maybe, no, I do love very thin lines and very, like, something that looks minimalistic. I like a very plain surface, just like with a touch of this or that, or maybe a dimple or something like that. It might help if you, even if you have experience with the clay or experience with painting, is to go into it pretending that you have met this thing for the first time, and just really just jump in it with a mindset of a child that found some paint and is excited to just use it, not not worried about the end result, not worried about what this piece of paper is going to say about them and about their practice. This is a very personal experience, and it's a very personal process, because you are basically learning more about yourself, like learning more about what you like, what you get excited about. And sometimes it doesn't happen like that. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to see, okay, maybe I like this, but I like it at about 40%. To get the 100 or the 200%, I think there's something there, but I need to work at it. And this is a lot of this is what art is. A lot of what we do also as makers is that we just sit with something, like sit with something and work with it and see where this thing is going to take us. So welcome to the workshop, and I hope that you enjoy it. So the first thing that I want to do in this workshop is to take you outside of the studio to nature. Because when I say that nature is the best or the biggest reference library that I found, is I feel like it kind of stands true when I'm looking for like certain things. For example, throughout my art practice, I've been painting on the clay with underglaze pencils, and all the things that I would share with you in this workshop. So I've always just been using transparent glaze to show my paintings underneath. But I think I'm in the stage at my work that I'm interested in the glaze, but I'm not interested in the glaze that is pristine and glossy and something looks like nice on a cup on a shelf. I'm always interested, or I'm always drawn to the ceramics that look like something else, like the ceramics that look like concrete, or the ceramics that look like growing fungus, or they look like, sometimes they look kind of literally like dirt. And this is the thing that fascinates me about the glaze, the chemical process that can make the ceramic look like something different, like something that it was buried in the ground and you dug up and you found it. So I'm taking you in this short trip to see what are the things that I can look at and see, okay, what is it exactly I want this glaze to look like? And finding all these references of dirt, and especially the trees, because the trees always, first, they're very decadent. They have been there for years and years, and there's something about that inspires me, because this is the let's say the vibe that I'm kind of looking for. The trunks always have, or a lot of them have, these beautiful patterns or have this very strong texture, and sometimes like part of the tree looks like it's a bit kind of burnt off, and sometimes looks like it is growing some kind of fungus or whatever that thing kind of technically is. And even like the trunk of the tree looking like it's peeling off and has this pattern. And I'm also interested in patterns, but I'm not interested in the patterns that are very repetitive, or you can see the arrangement of it. Nature has a lot of patterns that are a little bit different, like sometimes they're dense in some areas and sometimes they're sparse. And I can see that even on the grass, or in the way that the flowers are arranged. Like there are a concentration of the flowers, and then there is maybe like there are white flowers, and then there is one yellow flower. And sometimes like you can see those little things, like a dead flower in the middle of like very beautiful scene, and you just more intrigued by that dead flower, or the flower that is maybe smashed or smushed or something. Sometimes even like seeing the discarded things on the floor, like seeing kind of something that feels like pop art, like you're in nature, and there's suddenly this like, I don't know, box of something that is discarded, or a bottle of water that is discarded. Yes, it is garbage, but at the same time, this contrast of things, the thing that looks like it doesn't belong there, and there is something interesting about that. I'm not yet sure how to use it. I'm not sure how to do it. I'm in a stage that I don't even know how to mix my glazes, or I don't really understand the chemistry of the glazes. But I feel like it's very beneficial to me as a creative person to just keep all of, or to kind of enrich my sight and my mind with all of those things that are around me, and I can just kind of look at them and record them and keep them maybe as pictures on my phone or my videos. And I think maybe it's a good exercise to kind of take you with me and see what are the things that I'm looking for. You might be looking for something completely different. You might be looking for the water, or for something more softer, or maybe something more kind of minimalistic, like how clear like the sky is, or sometimes even inspired by snow or ice. I've seen a lot of artists, or a lot of ceramic artists who use the I've seen a lot of ceramic artists who use a combination of the slip and the glaze and the underglaze to make something look like melted ice. And even looking at the ice and seeing the sparkle on it are things that I'm excited to try when it comes to the glazes. So when it comes to working with paper, I feel like we have quite a few tools that we can experiment with, and what I would recommend is to go into it with more of a relaxed attitude, and to go into it with an open mindset of willing to experiment and to try different things on paper, trying different materials, and just trying to work on it until like you feel like you're truly enjoying the process and you're loving the thing that you're seeing. The things that I would recommend to work with is ink, because ink doesn't have a very high learning curve, unlike acrylic or maybe other kind of paint that you need to learn how to mix the color in a way that it looks more pleasing. The ink is very interesting, has a very beautiful depth, and you can use it in a more thick form, and you can use it more in a diluted form as well. Another medium that I would recommend to use is the colored pencils, because we do have underglaze pencils that we can use on the ceramic to make it look like colored pencils. And experimenting with the colored pencils using different scribbles, maybe drawings or writings, are also ways that you can play with the material. Trying different colors and trying different ways of mixing the colors is also some way that you can test the materials. Also working with pastel, maybe like you can try to dilute it with water, try to do some mark making with your finger or with a brush, and see what is the effect that you like, what are the colors that you like, what are the mark making that appeals to you. I would recommend to use a sketchbook, but if you feel a sketchbook is a big commitment or makes you feel uncomfortable, because sometimes a sketchbook serves as a record, but it takes time to feel comfortable with it. So I would recommend to just work on some loose paper. But I would also recommend to keep the papers, because the papers serve as a record that you can use later. You might not love them now, but you might find them interesting in the future. And then after you feel like you had your fill, I would recommend to go over it again, but go into it with not a very kind of self-deprecating tone, or not trying to see a masterpiece, but looking into the paper, trying to see what are the things that you like in a more neutral way without trying to judge your work. So we already played with the material, charcoal, paint, color pencil, what have you. Maybe take a break and come back to it. Looking at it while you're working on it sometimes does not really look like anything. But if we look at a page that is as messy as this, and you can look at certain areas, and this is what I meant by the cropping part, is that, for example, just looking at this area and looking at the whole page as a whole and seeing what is the thing that attracts your attention, what is the thing that you are drawn to. And you don't have to like think, oh, I need to find a reason why I like it. It's like we're not looking for justification. Piece of music, we don't ask the musician to tell us why they hit an A minor or why it's a C minor. We just genuinely experience it and enjoy it. And I think the same approach really works, or should be, for art. The movement of it, and it makes me feel like I want to do more of that. And it makes me wonder, how would this look if I then layer it with something else? Like, what if I draw on it in white, or maybe layer it with another color? For example, this little stroke here. The things that you like sometimes might be similar. Like, you like movement. You realize that I like texture, I like movement, I like seeing the energy of the stroke. Zoom in here to this area where there are some just marks. There is a big difference between these marks and those marks. I like these as if it's like a current of water moving, leaving some bigger like white areas and maybe condensed over here. And you can definitely kind of forego of the things that don't really interest you. So as I said, it's a continuous process that you're just looking, taking notes, realizing something, and it can be something literally as small as I like this, I like this, I don't like this, or whatever. And say that I like this, like I like the fact that it does look like it's my fingerprints, or it does look like I just took something and smudged it. Is it something maybe I can recreate through glazes? Maybe I already have the glaze and I can take another glaze and just smudge it. Or maybe there's no glaze and I just apply the glaze this way. The thing about this observation or about this process is this: there's a lot of what if I do this, what if I do that, what if I go a step further with this, what about this one, like I really like this scribble, and then like you realize it's just a piece of paper and you can go to the next one. There are a lot of overlap, and there is something about the overlap that I like. I like the depth that automatically happens once you overlap certain strokes, when certain strokes are like really faint and other strokes are dark, and it creates this beautiful texture and the fading of these areas here. The whole page is, yes, it's static, but you can see a lot of movement. You know that, okay, I do have this reference, I like this, and I want to try it on a piece of clay, or try it on my next mug, or try it on my next vase, or just try it on a textile. And even though it's the same medium, but they do look different. Maybe like you love the contrast, you love the white space that actually makes all the strokes kind of come to life. Maybe all these unplanned areas and that create all of this texture. Maybe I like it much more than if that was just one thick line like this one. So it's almost as if you're highlighting it with your eyes and going like, okay, this. Sometimes even cutting this piece out and putting it up, it just serves like a mood board. How just changing the color makes a huge difference. I've decided that I'm not crazy about this. It's still worth looking into. It's still worth doing the same exercise. It's trying to see the areas that are beautiful. I turn this way. It looks like a lake. I want to see more how I can make this look like energetic water, like looks like water that is made with a lot of energy. This composition, this area here, I like the solid blob, and then these little strokes, this wash here, this random thing. Maybe I like the randomness of it. I like that the lines are not completely straight. I like that the spacing is all different. Okay, maybe actually from all of this, I like this over here. I like to see that the brush came and then moved. I like this area here. Instead of just making a line, I will include this area. I can see the brush getting set to go. Even though I do know that I like concentrated paint and thick paint, but as I said, like I'm coming into this without this decision made. This is just one piece of paper of trying this out. I can fill a whole sketchbook of only this and see something different each time, or decide that, okay, maybe I don't like any of this gradient thing, I don't like it. I like this line that looks like something just was dripping here. So in this section of the workshop, I'm going to share with you what are the tools that you can use on the clay that can help you emulate the process that we have been doing on paper. The things that will allow you to do some mark making, some layering, add some color, maybe even add some texture, and what stage of the ceramic process you can add them on. So the first thing that we can use on the clay is the clay itself, but in a liquid form, which is the slip. So the slip is basically some clay that is watered down. So you can either use it as is, meaning that you can use, for example, like porcelain slip, on the all-purpose clay, you need to experiment with it because every clay shrinks differently and it can have different effects after the firing. Another thing to keep in mind is the slip is something that you can add in the leather hard stage before you put the piece in the kiln. And the leather hard is basically when the clay can hold its own and it is a little bit firm to the touch, because otherwise the clay would collapse. You cannot put it after the bisque because it's going to just flake off. And you can add stain to the slip, so you can add it with color. The slip is basically gives you more texture because it's actually clay, and you can easily paint or draw on top of the slip with different techniques, and you can just experiment with different ways that you can use the slip. There is also the underglaze paint. So underglaze paint is one of the tools that there is an abundance of colors and formulations and translucency and different brands that produce it. So it is definitely something to be experimented with. So the color of the underglaze paint varies after the first and the second firing. So you can only see the final result after the piece is completely fired. The consistency of the underglaze is usually like thick yogurt. And you can always change the consistency by adding water to it, and you can also mix it with other colors. So definitely the field of experimentation is very wide. The second tool is the underglaze pencils, which is the equivalent of the colored pencils. The range of the underglaze pencils is much narrower than the colored pencils. There are select colors that are available, and I find that the quality varies from brand to brand. Some brands are much more easier to work with, and they have more of a noticeable or like bold application. So the time to use the underglaze pencils is in the bisque stage, after the first firing. You can try them on the greenware, but you're going to see that it's not going to work because it digs into the clay. So the next tool that we have is some wax crayons that I found here in the UK. The consistency of them reminds me of some oil pastels, and also of the black one looks like charcoal. And for me that was a nice surprise to find here, because in different countries and in different brands, like, you can find different products. It was nice to discover this because I do love charcoal in my sketchbooks, so it was really good to see that I can have a similar effect in the ceramic. Underglaze chalk crayons, they are definitely like chalk and also as soft pastels. So it's really nice to see that they work almost exactly like pastels, meaning that I can add water to them and they would dilute and would actually have a beautiful texture, especially if I use my finger, and I can also just use them as a crayon. The one thing about them that they're quite messy, so that's why I would recommend maybe to use some kind of fixative, so you wouldn't smudge the piece as you're working on it. So the next tool is the graffito paper, which is very similar to transfer paper. They come mainly in black color, and there's also like a limited selection of colors that is available. I find that it's difficult to draw with, but it's much easier to make some interesting patterns. And I also found that the black one looks a lot like a pen or a gel pen or maybe some kind of charcoal, while the other colors look a little bit more like colored pencils or maybe some very fine pastel pencils. And I do recommend to pack them individually, not like I was packing them, because the pigment can easily just rub off. Okay, so this is the part of the workshop that I was really excited about. So I did order some samples of the clay so I can try different textures and see what the clay can do, because every clay has a different personality, and I feel like part of working with the clay is getting introduced to that personality and to like see if you can work together. So got some porcelain, which is actually feels completely different, like it feels a little bit more rubbery. So what we're going to do is we're going to experience them and to work with them, because like to create something artistic, like you need to know how to work with your materials, and it's more of an exploration process of what you have and what you can work with. I'll be cutting a small piece of each one of them and feel them out, see what I can do with them, and we'll go from there. All right, so now that we had a feel of the clay, There are of course a lot of ways to like attach clay together, but the good thing about this state is that you almost don't need to, like you don't need to do a lot of attachment. Say like you have these balls here, like you can smoosh them like that, and you can have them stick together. This workshop is not how to attach things efficiently. Like what we're trying to do is to discover what is it that we want to do with it, or to just basically play with it like we're 12. Because when we were younger and we were playing with clay, it wasn't that much of big of a deal. Like we weren't scared of it, we were just excited about it. What would be great to do is just to get back to that mindset, is to just see it as something to just play with and see what are the ways that we can shape it. The cool thing about clay, especially if you decide to paint on it after, is that you don't really need to do that much to turn it into something. Like for example, the easiest thing to do, say a banana, which is something that I like to do a lot. I like to sketch. A banana is quite simple. Like you need to just bend it like that, and of course you can keep working on it until it starts to take the shape that you want. And the cool thing, you can spend as little or as much time as you want. So in no time, we already have something that can be a banana, because later when you paint on it, or when you paint it even just yellow with some lines, it will turn into a banana. Or let's say the banana, I want it to look like this thing that the Jungle Boy had. The one with the angle that you throw and it comes back to you. I just don't know what is the name in English, but just bend it a little bit more. And that's the beautiful thing about working with the clay. You can change it in literally seconds. So of course, like everybody is going to come up with a different shape. Let's say I take this one. It just listens to you. Like you can just pull to make, I don't know, whatever this is. Say I want to make a hand. That sounds complicated, but it's actually quite intuitive to do. Clay kind of moves with you the way that you want it to move. And the easy thing or like the simple act of just making these extrusions, hopefully we end up with 5 fingers here. Okay, it looks more like a star, but this is why we keep working out with it. And it's so easy to show the clay like where to go, you know. And if you want it to be like a cartoonish hand, or like a more realistic looking one, say like I have like too much clay here, you can easily just move it to whatever place that you want. So when it's fatter, I can take a little bit from here, move it to the other finger, trying to make this middle finger longer. And just like a 12-year-old trying, or a 5-year-old just playing with clay that they've been given, not having to like prove anything. It's really the kind of process that you can be engrossed in and just forget. I think this is somewhat convincing hand. Then you can decide, I want it to be sitting up, let me just tap it, and that's it. Like you create the base. Or say I want to like let it be like that. I want it to be some kind of plate maybe. Or maybe a necklace, so I can just punch a hole in it when it gets drier. Maybe adding a bend will make it look more or feel more like a finger. I can choose to leave it as plain clay, or I can just draw on it so I can have the nails and all of that. That all just depends on you. And say I want it to be some kind of dish. So the hands will just, thankfully, like we have 2 hands. Alright, another thing that I feel like it's beautiful to explore in is, say like you want to make a cup. as a pinch pot, all right, for argument's sake, let's say this is a little cup that we have. What I'm trying to find out, what is the kind of cup that I would like to make. So since like the goal here is not to just make a cup, the goal is to discover or investigate how do I want my cup to look. Maybe I really like to see my fingerprints on it, so I can play with it until I feel like, okay, this is the kind of texture, the rough texture that I like. So I can try this out, fire it, and see, okay, do I like how the glaze is hanging on all of that? Because creating any texture on the clay would have, let's say, kind of consequences, meaning that when you put the underglaze might look different, the texture of the finished cup will be different, how the glaze is going to cling to this area. And working with clay and ceramics in general, it's just a lot of experimentation, a lot of just testing things out and see if you like them. All right, say I tried this, I like it better than a smooth cup, or maybe you do like a smooth cup, so this is what you're gonna end up doing. So the thing about ceramics is all about the details. So say for example where the bottom of the cup sits, this area I feel like I need it to be, it's easier to put it like that and work with it. So I want to have this kind of groove in it. So this creates a different kind of cup that I prefer a little bit. Like I like the weird footer that we're making here. Or I want to do something different. So let's kind of deconstruct this. Remember, we're just investigating, discovering, playing. So let me just, for argument's sake, just take off this bottom, straighten it out a little. So the thing is that we might not ever kind of fire this, but we're just using it to test things out. And we might fire it, and I do recommend to fire so you can see like the final results, because something might look good now but not later, or might look fine now, or you don't like it that much but you really like it when it's finished. So let's say this is the bottom. Again, like we know we need to score and slip it, etc., but this is not what we're doing today. So what I'm going with is that I'm just gonna put it here, and then this is the area that I want to play with. The realizing of what you like, it just takes a little bit of testing, and it's really easier to just test something small other than just making a bunch of large things. So what I want to do is I want the bottom to look maybe messy, so look like it's purposely put this way. I actually like this texture, but I feel like I want to vary it around, like not make it all identical like that, but maybe some part of it, let me just blend it in like a child made this. And the beautiful thing that a lot of the things that looks like a child made them are actually much more exciting. So I think I would prefer this way of attachment than it looking clean. Something that I really love is to see, so let me tear this here. I want the slab to be overlapping like this. I want to see the joint, because this looks like much more interesting than just like a plain cup that is very well made. I want it to be this prominent, or do I want it to be just a little bit? Maybe look like that. Maybe, I'm not sure. So let's tear another one over here too. So let's just overlap it like that. I actually like this slab, this overlap better, because here like you can see a little bit of like grunginess here, or like a little bit of a mass here. So I'm just gonna press it lightly. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a few tears and try them, like we're basically doing the same thing, but we're trying them in different ways. Let me see. because this looks like a bit like a rock, or like a side of a mountain or something, and I'm gonna keep playing with that until I see what is it that I like, what is it that I'm looking for. I might find it today, I might not find it, this might take me to something else. But this experimentation is, I think, what makes our work interesting, because I think when it comes to ceramics, we kind of follow the steps of somebody else, or the right steps of making ceramics, because for ceramics the traditional way of making it is to make it smooth and pristine and make it look like it's bought from a store or something like that. Say I want to see how my finger and how am I gonna do it this time? This time let me try to make it a little bit more like barely there, like you can barely see the joint but it's still there. And say like you don't want different thicknesses, so I'm just gonna smooth it. So this is like what actually happens when you try to discover something, as opposed to seeing a picture of Instagram or Pinterest and just trying to duplicate it, because this is a different kind of thought processes. The first one is to test your skills in the making, and here like you're trying to test or just to discover what you as an individual, as an artist, as whatever you would like to call yourself, like. Okay, so this is starting to give me accidentally like its own texture, so maybe I want the whole cup to look like that. Say I fire this and I really like this area, so I can continue doing it by just overlapping and overlapping, and then I'm gonna create this step texture. This looks ugly, but I'm actually excited about how this will turn out to be, especially from the outside, when I can either use glaze, like I don't even need to paint on this. I can just put some even like white glaze or whatever, and it can like kind of emphasize all of these corners. So I'm done playing with this, I think, or I can make it, you can see, okay, maybe it's a tiny cup for milk or something, and maybe I want it to be really cinched at the bottom. So I'm realizing, okay, I quite like that it's not straight. So actually maybe when I make cups, I really like this dent here. And this is actually a real exercise that I'm doing, because I made cups and mugs, but I never really liked them, and this is also like for me to discover how I want my mug to be. And I think this is not exactly it, but it's a step in the right direction. This cup might look absolutely ugly to everybody, and I do recognize that it looks ugly, but I do love ugly things. Let us imagine that this clay is a piece of paper. But the funny thing is that you can actually mold this paper. You can actually, instead of just painting on it, you can make it look as whatever you want. I'm going to treat this as a canvas, meaning that this is what I'm going to be working with. Say this is a piece of paper. I want to see what is it that I can do with it that is interesting to me, and also I can do something with it. I'm going to flatten it, and then let's see, what do I like? Do I like these folds? Maybe I want to see if I take a piece of it and then attach it this way. So I like this area, and actually I like the way that the clay naturally forms stuff like that. So I would leave that. Sometimes it's really It's really a fun mindset and very useful mindset if you think of what you're doing as a collaboration between you and the clay. Like you would do some intentional marks here, but sometimes the clay would give you some marks that you didn't really ask for, but you still like these marks here. That I'm like, okay, I like this. I don't know how I'm gonna redo it again. I don't know how I'm going to use it. Maybe the surfaces of a vase, maybe the surface of my mugs, whatever. But I like this, so I'm gonna keep this. I like the I like the effect of my finger on the clay, but this is not how I want it to look. So let me try again. Maybe take one area of my clay canvas and see, okay, I want to look like not organized like this, but I want it to look like it's just a random person doing this, like it's a bit hammered. Okay, so maybe I like it more than have it smoothed out, maybe. So if I like that, that means maybe when I do a pinch pot, I'm not gonna smooth it. I'm gonna see how it looks the way it is. Maybe try the folds again. And there's absolutely no rush. Like you're just trying to observe. Okay, I do like this. I just don't like this whole pattern that is they're starting to perhaps want to have one fold and have them not all the same way. Some of them are like soft, some of them are deep. Okay, I like that. So maybe next time I'm decorating a vase, instead of using a tool, I'm just going to use my hand, my fingers. Maybe not smooth it when I put it, maybe just fold it and leave it. I like this one better. And as I keep saying, this is a very personal exercise. Maybe the things that I love here are things that someone else hates, but you do what you like to do. This is what I like. I like texture. I like watching the clay. Okay, let's smooth it. Maybe I'm trying to avoid all of them looking round. So let me try to actively change that. And even though it seems like I'm seemingly doing the same thing, but I'm actually just trying to see, okay, which one of these do I like, or do I like this at all? But it's good to do it and then to see, okay, maybe this is not for me. The clay is not only the medium to make cups and plates, etc. You can make sculptures, you can make abstract pieces, you can literally just do anything you want with it. Let me bring back my stick. Let me see. Nope. Nope. Let me see if this was a brush. Let's see if I like how I'm manipulating this canvas here. Maybe after I make the vase and it's still wet, I can just see, okay. I like to make a pattern where no one knows how I made it, and it's not even enough that I can replicate it. I like that it's a one-off. I can make something similar to it, but not the exact same thing. So this is a good reference to have. And I also sometimes have test styles of these, like I like this, or I don't like any of this, but I like this. So I will just take this and maybe even fire it, see how I like the paint on it and how I like the glaze on it. I'm like, okay, I like this, I'm taking it, I don't like anything else. Let's start over. Let's take this, say, as a reference. And this time I'm gonna take a stick that looks somehow like a brush. And the exciting part is that we end up with something 3D, even if it's flat, like even if the final piece is like that I'm gonna hang on the wall or just keep as whatever, as a coaster, whatever, is still 3D. It's still more interesting than just a piece of paper. What kind of effect, even without paint, without anything, I just want to see what it can do to the surface. Maybe make a few holes. Like, I like the hole, but I don't want them to be all over the place. I'm just looking for a surface that looks scratched, battered, looks old. But I quite kind of like this. Like, I actually feel like I do definitely want to make a mug or a vase and try this way of texturing it. Let's try something else. Okay. I quite like that, actually. It looks like the houses with bees, or the other black bee, I don't remember the name, the hornet, I think. So it's almost a pattern, but not so organized. The beautiful thing about clay, again, is the dimensionality of it. Like, looking at it this way is different than looking at it this way. So if I decide to make the holes in different directions, it will have even a more interesting surface to it. Like, this hole is coming this way and this hole is the other way. And this might look like a mundane thing to like spend a lot of time on, but a lot of the clay is also about those little details, the little surprises that you can feel. So I really love this surface. So thank you for watching this workshop, and I really hope that you found some ways that can inspire you to work both on paper and on ceramics. And what I would also like to say is that it's a continuing process. It is something that it takes time to see things that you like, to see things that you want to do more of. And it is also a fun process and a rewarding process when you start seeing things that you like and you start having some resolve when it comes to like certain ways that things look and the way things feel as well.